Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Northern Kentucky Spotlight Podcast presented by CVG. I'm your host, Sarah Brookbank. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Ashleigh DuBois, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here at the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. She and I talk about the Chamber's recent DEI efforts and upcoming events centered around creating practices and procedures to make the Northern Kentucky workforce more welcoming and inclusive for talent. On NKY at Work, Nancy Spivey is joined by Alexandra Bowden of PEOPLEfirst Talent and Retention Consulting. They chat about how you can win over and retain top talent through creating a strategic culture. We have some exciting news about an upcoming NKYP service learning project. To make a positive community impact, NKYP is supporting the Emergency Shelter of Northern Kentucky. Participants can spend the year helping an emergency shelter by cooking and serving meals, engaging with guests, sorting donations, and assisting with general cleaning needs. You can see the schedule and learn more at nkychamber.com/service project. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, CVG, our title sponsor, C-Crew Consulting, our digital sponsor, and our episode sponsor, Schneller Knockelman. Now, let's go hear from those sponsors, meet our members of the week, and Nancy and I will be back with this week's guests.
Why would you travel to England?
For football.
To go or not to go?
That is an easy question.
To visit the land of Shakespeare.
To take in all the sights.
Authentic fish and chips.
To experience arts and culture.
2 words, British Open.
To visit my family.
Same reason I go anywhere. For a pint of beer. To start my trip through Europe.
Whatever your reason, there's no better time than now.
Ranking on Google Search and Maps is easy to understand, but hard to do. It requires constant effort and attention, uploading new photos, responding to Google reviews, writing weekly posts, and checking suggested updates. Google listing optimization takes experience and time, and there are no shortcuts. C-Crew gives your Google My Business account the steady, consistent attention it needs to be effective, optimizing, updating, and expanding critical content every single week. From local retail stores to large regional networks, C-Crew generates content, establishes benchmarks, and creates dramatic, measurable increases in engagement. So what can C-Crew do for your business? More calls, more clicks, more clients.
Congratulations to our members of the week. You can learn more about these businesses by following the Northern Kentucky Chamber on social media, where we will highlight one of these businesses each day. Now, let's meet our members of the week. Adopt a Class connects businesses and civics groups with students in underserved communities throughout the greater Cincinnati region. When you visit Charles Schwab, Northern Kentucky, you'll find that they provide financial guidance on your terms. The Florence Women's Club is an organization formed in 1954. They have dedicated more than 65 years of community service, benefiting numerous charities serving the region. CSR Collective offers carpentry, historical restoration, structural repairs and foundations, as well as additions and remodels and demolition. Ronald McDonald House Charities of Greater Cincinnati offers a community of compassion, support, and the comforts of home to families with critically ill children, steps away from the medical care that they need. Hi, everyone. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Ashleigh DuBois, our Director of DEI here at the Chamber. Ashleigh, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's been a while.
I know. So, it's been a while. You are constantly up to stuff. Yes. Tell us a little bit about what your work has been like, who you've been meeting, who you've been talking to, and what's been going on.
I feel like it's been such a long time that we never talked about sunsetting the DEI committee.
Right.
Okay, so we sunset the DEI committee. We had a pretty large committee, maybe 40 people, and it became more of a share out. And so I said, I want to do something very strategic. We had already got the ruling from the Supreme Court about affirmative action. We saw some fright happen in some of our corporations. And I said, well, what if we change to a steering committee model? If we pulled in some of our key leaders, the people that can really do the moving and shaking, where all of us don't have the same influence, but we have influence in different spheres that can work really well together. So we moved to a steering committee model. We had our first meeting. It was phenomenal. Probably to date, the best meeting I've ever had.
Awesome.
And we started by asking people what your favorite food was. And you'd be surprised when people like chicken wings. So we were giving out lists of places to try. And then we started to talk really about how do we mobilize this work on a larger scale. So Northern Kentucky, we know, has about 400,000 people, but we're growing every day. So I'm really looking forward to those next level of census numbers. And then what do our corporations start to look like? And how do we continue to stay a very inclusive place? We're very much an international kind of region now with our direct flights to certain places and a lot of the cultures that are coming here. So how do we make sure that everything that we do is impactful? And so that's been taking up a lot of our time.
Yeah.
People might think that's a quick thing, but it took us about 4 to 6 months to really like turn the ship and really just hone in on what we're good at. And business is what we do. So business is kind of where we stay.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And it's very different in a way, the way we talk about DEI, because I think there for a while it was a really big buzzword. People were like DEI, DEI, DEI. And like you said, I think a lot of people, when that affirmative action ruling came in, were like, oh, we'll pump the brakes like hard.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have kind of like overcorrected or maybe didn't correct enough. But it still remains diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workforce is important. And it's that idea of like talent attraction and retention. We like to link those. What are you seeing in that space right now? And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about our eggs and issues topic that focuses on that. But what are you seeing? What's important that business leaders need to know right now?
So our region is changing every day. Boone County alone has about 74 dialects being spoken at this moment. We're still seeing a huge influx of our Mexican population coming back. A lot of Venezuelan people are coming to the region. We've had an influx of Haitians come. So it's not coming from one area or one part of the country. People are flocking here. So there's beauty in that. But we have to make sure that we're setting up the cultural atmosphere in our workplaces. So oftentimes you'll hear people say, we need people. Last number I heard, we have about 11,000 open jobs in Northern Kentucky. And those will continue to grow. So we have people coming here. How do we create an environment where they want to come? They can say, hey, this is how we do it in our home country, or this is what I maybe need to be successful. And that may not look like what we're traditionally used to. I always pair this with the fact that we have Gen Z coming into the workplace and like hybrid work is a big thing. And, you know, what do you stand for? Social causes. To me, that's very similar. If we know we have American-born people here who believe that, right? The Gen Z population entering into the workforce, having to work with our baby boomers and everything in between, Xers and millennials. Then when we have people from other cultures come here, they're saying the same thing. They may not care for the hybrid workspace, but they may say, hey, when we order this kind of food, I don't eat it, or I have to observe a holiday on this day. So they're asking for very similar things. And I think if we can put it in that context, it's digestible for people.
Right. I think so many people get hung up on certain aspects of DEI without thinking, like you said, like diversity is age diversity, it's gender diversity, it's, you know, sexual orientation, it is ethnic, it is your skin tone, it's all sorts of different types of diversity. And if you are a welcoming workforce, it's better for every single person in your workplace. Yeah. But like I said, this month for Eggs and Issues, we are talking about workforce culture and why it's important. Obviously, that's something we talk about a lot. Touch on this Eggs and Issues and what you're excited about and what you're excited to hear from the speakers that we have.
So we asked NKU to come and talk. So Dr. Eric Jackson is very much a historian. So he's written books about Northern Kentucky, which I think is very beautiful. People don't understand the richness of our culture here. If you couple that with Russia Short, who works at Kroger, and you start talking about food insecurity. So people don't think about diversity being in food. But we understand with inflation happening and then the types of foods, depending on where you live, if there's a certain population of people like the Florence Kroger may have more ethnic food because maybe that's the diversity of that particular region. If I went to somewhere else, they may not have the same level of things in their aisles. So really wanting to get the perspective from a Kroger to say, what is it that you all are doing around an inclusive work environment? What does your supplier diversity look like? Because the only way to know what food you need to have on the shelves is to be working with the people from that country or that culture. And then to partner with the Gail Manley at Fidelity. When we think about finances, that's often the equality part, right? People are very much so big on, well, the American dream. Everyone should be able to have a house and a car and a dog and 2.5 kids and a white picket fence. Houses right now are astronomical. The interest rate is astronomical. People don't have a lot of savings. So as all those things coupled together, we're asking these really tough questions. What can we be doing? What does finance look like if I am a millennial with student loan debt and I think I want to buy a house? Like, what does that look like? Because my portfolio may not look like someone else's. If you couple that with a race, then you start having a very different conversation. We know the majority of our country, the wealth is held by white people. which is not a bad thing. It just means that for other people, we have to learn how to obtain wealth and what does wealth look like for me. And so really wanted to couple this conversation with health equity. So we got Chris Johnson to come and talk about the healthcare side of things. And so I do believe this is going to be a great conversation for people to not put us in a box. We're not talking Black and white issues. This is not Hispanic and Asian issues. We're talking about humans. All of us need healthcare. We need finances. we need education.
Houses.
We need houses.
The intersectionality of all of these conversations, all these speakers that we have is something that I'm really looking forward to hearing. And we've had Chris on the podcast and he's great. I love hearing from him at different events. I think he's going to be a wonderful moderator for this event. I really encourage people, if they're not already registered, to register for that.
Yes.
And I think that changing workplace culture, I know you and I have talked about this like offhandedly, and it's a conversation we have a lot at the chamber, is post-pandemic, it's different. And as we learn more about DEI and how we treat people in the workplace and how that's changing, it's very interesting just as like a young person in the workforce to even see how it's changed since we've entered the workforce.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it will keep changing. And adaptability is probably my favorite word at this point. When I got hired at the chamber, I said there's power in pivoting. Now I think adaptability becomes a real thing. There may be things we do on Monday that we're not going to do on Tuesday. We also know we're in the middle of the election season. And so we have our Supreme Court and everything. They're all in session right now having very interesting conversation. So what comes out of that is going to be able to be what we're voting on in November. And so I always tell people we want something that can adapt to the changing government system, because that's also a big indicator. We saw what happened when affirmative action came down. Well, now if you get a different president, things have to shift. And so we have to stay adaptable to this. We have to really look at what our policies are as a country, and then what are our policies as a state, because we do have some power around some of those things. And how do we make sure that when we say we want to preserve our rolling hills, we have beautiful rolling hills in Kentucky, right? This is what we're known for. But how do we do that and bring people here at the same time? And then when they get here, how do we get them to want to stay? Raise a family here, right? And maybe home ownership is not what we do in year 1, maybe it's year 5, but there's a plan we can put to place if that's what you want. So I really think adaptability is going to be the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. And I'm hoping to hear it because that's also a multi-generational panel. They're not all of the same generation. So when you think about that, they're going to bring the lens of, well, when I entered and now where I am, those are 2 different perspectives. So I'm looking forward to the action issues.
That'll be a good one. Another upcoming event we have with our DEI programming is later on in the year, we have Investing in Equity. It's one of our big events, keystone. It's a great conversation. Lots of breakout speakers that do a lot of work. Right now, we are calling for speakers for people. So touch on this event, touch on how people can get involved and what you're looking forward to.
We do it in June. We changed it from a Friday to a Thursday.
Nice.
So I think that might garner a little bit more attention. We also are very strategic about our steering committee, right? So we're thinking, why don't we bring in a much larger speaker to really talk about the impact or implications of either removing DEI and what that's looked like and how we see that ripple effect. But when we say we need speakers, we want to hear what's important in your workplace culture. What is it that you're valuing? How are you using data to tell your story? When you talked about people overcorrecting after the affirmative action decision came down, I think a lot of people did the feel-good work. I want you to feel good about this. I don't. We need numbers, right? There is a critical issue and workforce is the issue. So how do we get more people to want to go back into the workforce? Well, if you do that, childcare becomes a conversation. If you do that, health equity becomes a conversation. So you can't have them in silos. We have to have them together. And this is a great place to come. We're over 350 leaders from C-suite to frontline workers, all in one room, want to hear about that conversation, but also want to contribute to that conversation. We are only successful if all of us are successful. If only one company's doing good, we'll never hear about it. But if we all can come together and do good work in this region, we'll be able to keep uplifting that message.
And so for people who are interested in either becoming a speaker or getting more information, where can they find that?
So if you want to be a speaker, you can email me. You can also email Sarah. But we have it out. It's not on our website yet, but we do have it out in Circle. So if people are subscribed, if you subscribe to the podcast, you see any of our social media posts and you engage with them, those are clickable posts. So you can see them and the links are always there.
Yes. So like Ashleigh said, it's definitely up on the Chamber social media if you do need to find it there. Or like Ashleigh said, you can email her.
Yeah.
She's very responsive to my emails.
Yeah.
So she'll be responsive to yours.
Back, I promise.
But Ashleigh, before I let you go, obviously it's February. It's Black History Month.
It is.
We are celebrating Black culture, Black history, the impact that Black people have here in the region and nationally. One of the things that we talk about at the Chamber is making sure that we're not just, oh, it's February, we're going to talk about it now. Or like with that during Hispanic Heritage Month.
Correct.
Businesses and leaders in the community, how can they really embrace the cultural differences that we have, celebrate these employees now and throughout the year?
I know Brent would love this if I say this. Well, we're a business organization,
right?
So we would love for you to patron our chamber businesses. Our chamber members are phenomenal. We have a beautiful list of Black-owned businesses who are here in our region that I think people should go and patronize because that's one way to show up and support. The other thing is that doesn't have to stop. So I'm a big proponent of let's have those conversations and support our workforce all year round. But there are also some conversations we don't have to have during Black History Month.
Right.
You'll hear a lot of people talk about getting tired of having certain conversations, and I think that's a real thing. So let's be very sensitive to what our workforce wants and needs. But also we have the National Underground Railroad Museum, which always has exhibits and they're very beautiful. We have a ton of art if you're an art kind of person. So those are things I always tell people, get out, do something else, go with a colleague somewhere. There's a lot of celebration happening. And then we'll also, right after our event in June, Juneteenth happens. So there's another level of celebration where you can kind of keep this going. And as you get out and you venture and you realize that we're not that different. Right. We may celebrate differently, music might be different, our taste might differ, but we're not very different. What we do in February, same thing, our Hispanic Heritage Month, same thing we're going to be doing, right? It's going out, it's patronizing these businesses, seeing how we can support people. So I'm open to conversations and books and podcasts, but I'm also open to just asking someone, what can I do for you today?
Yeah. Well, Ashleigh, it is always wonderful to have you on the podcast. It is one of my favorite things that I get to also film you sometimes when you get to come in and I get to watch your conversations happen. But before I let you go today, is there anything else you'd like to share about your work here at the Chamber or anything that our listeners need to know?
If you would like to get involved, please send me an email. We would love to have people involved in the work that we're doing. We'd also love to hear about the work that you're doing. We really want to be intentional about uplifting the work. We have our social media platforms with You Help Me With all the time. And so being able to say, hey, these are our members and these are some of the amazing things that they're doing. You may think it's small, but I promise it's much bigger and we want to share it.
Yeah. Well, Ashleigh, thank you again for joining the podcast. It was great to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Spivey. I'm Vice President of Talent Strategies for the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. On today's NKY at Work segment, we are talking with Alex Bowden with PEOPLEfirst. Alex, tell me first of all, what is PEOPLEfirst?
PEOPLEfirst is essentially an HR consulting firm, but we do everything through the lens of culture. So we like to say ourselves culture experts, where we gamify and operationalize this elusive buzzword that people call culture.
And I understand you're the founder. So how did you get into this business? Tell me your background.
I am. I had a really interesting background. So I started as a professional dancer, of all things, and kind of fell into talent acquisition backwards. I was working with nonprofits in Baltimore City and New York City, and working in the school systems, hiring teachers and working with administrative personnel in implementing programs. So when I got to Cincinnati and I was hired by a marketing company, they were like, oh, you have interviewing experience. Why don't you head our committee? So I grew that into a full-time position within the first year and grew the department, started doing engagement, retention, culture, DE&I, all the things under the HR and people operations umbrella. But what I really loved was building out an infrastructure for hiring and retaining top talent and getting everyone on the same page and aligned on what that looked like, what their role in that process was, operating as a team and kind of representing the culture of the company through every step of the process. So I decided to take that and what I had become really good at and start a company, helping other people create great environments where great people can thrive. And then I also took my extreme career change experience in hiring and decided to do some career coaching as well. So I founded a program with Dr. David Roska at NKU for their marketing students to help them identify the right careers for them, the right cultures for them and companies to pursue.
Man, you've had a wonderful dynamic career. And, it's funny when I think about you as a professional dancer, I also think about all the HR people that I network with and how they're always dancing around anyway. So
Yeah.
it's just meant to be that you started as a
Yes.
dancer, but eventually I bet you're still dancing around in a lot of different environments, right?
I do. It always keeps me on my toes, that's for sure.
Sure. So today we're going to talk a little bit about an upcoming event that the Chamber's hosting. It's our 6th year for this event, and it's our Talent Strategies Symposium. And I understand you're one of the roundtable facilitators, and your topic is really centered around strategic culture and the tie to helping keep employees engaged and satisfied. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So that passion of mine really ties back into my experience. And when I gave up dancing and I devoted my whole life to this passion and pursuit, I didn't think I would ever find anything I was passionate about again. And corporate culture was known to be soul sucking, it's a really not very exciting environment. And I was kind of devastated, realizing I had to transition into this other thing and leave what I love behind. And what I found was I was lucky enough to fall into this organization where the culture was amazing. I felt like I was in a movie of like the perfect place to be, and everyone was kind and exciting to be around and smart and helpful, and they were treated well and with respect, and I was given the freedom to run with a lot of things and develop myself in an amazing variety of capacities. And I was just like, wow, how cool to be kind of a really non-traditional background and be able to build a career like this. And I believe I gave back to the company for investing in me in that way with everything I was able to contribute. When I started doing analysis of other top performers in the company, many of them were also from non-traditional backgrounds. So that got me intrigued about like, how do we break down the barriers of this vision we have for hiring these people that are cookie cutter or fit us on paper, how we really understand the culture and the environment in which we're trying to cultivate the right type of person, and kind of those behavioral attributes less than the skills, and really codify that so that we have this recipe for success of bringing in people who are going to thrive, and it's a win-win for everybody. So that was kind of that initial spark. I partnered up with 2 partners, one of which is Melanie Boer, who's the queen of culture, and she's gamified culture through her proprietary tool called Cards for Culture. And it's a business tool that helps us play a card game with companies and understand and align on exactly what their values, but most importantly, their behaviors are. And so many people might choose values from the top down, place them on everybody else, stick them on the wall. Nobody knows exactly what they mean or can recite them to you. But what we do is we bring the whole team together and we have them define it specifically. So customer service means these clear behaviors, right? Respect in the work environment means these clear behaviors. You can coach to behaviors. And so we take that and we turn it into something we can operationalize, we can coach to, we can manage performance with, and ultimately we can hire with. And who doesn't want to be very successful in their next role? The way to do that is to be very clear on, 1, joining the right culture. So identifying that up front makes it really easy for talent to weed themselves out and for us to weed out the right talent for us. And 2, you're then very clear on expectations when they arrive, and that sets people up for success. So all in all, it's a great strategy for differentiating yourself in the market to bring in top talent by knowing who you are, what that embodies, and be able to coach to and maintain a kind of growing organism that is culture throughout your organization.
So it just seems to be a common theme that I'm hearing and talking to all the roundtable facilitators for our upcoming event, how important cultural integration and cultural awareness is. It's not just about hiring a person for their skills, but tell me a little bit about the shift. Do you believe there's been a big shift in the market because of the tight market? What's causing this dynamic shift in what I'm seeing?
100%. I always tie it back to the pandemic. I think it was happening before the pandemic even, but the pandemic really accelerated the shift. My belief system is that, from talking to a lot of people in that process who are in career change or, still working or laid off from working, you're put in a life or death situation and you really start to reevaluate what matters to you. And when you are realizing what matters to you and you're realizing that all of your time is spent at work every day, you decide to become really critical about who you're spending your time with and what you're spending your time on. You want it to matter, and you want to be treated like you matter. And so I think it really just emboldened our population to put up with less crap, so to speak, and just say, like, this is what I want, and I'm not going to do anything else until I get it. And we also have a strong gig economy that's come in at the same time, which has allowed people to support themselves in transition. And it's normalized, gig work, which has also allowed people to say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I'll take a gig job or 2 gig jobs and I'll support myself until I find the right fit for me. So people have really been emboldened and decided, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is how I want to spend my precious time. And I want something that contributes back to my quality of life. And they're not willing to compromise anymore. And we've seen that regularly with top talent. They're getting multiple offers and they're picking and choosing the ones that they think are going to really give them the quality of life, the flexibility, and their various wants and needs depending on who they are.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think, again, just thinking about the different circumstances and what individuals might need differently from an employer and what they're willing to bring to the organization. Obviously, they can't just expect that it's a one-way street. It has to go both ways. But the idea that it's a two-way conversation now instead of a come work for me and this is why, I'm
right.
great.
And this is what you get. Yeah.
Right.
Take it or leave it,
Yeah, I love the fact that it's changing our mindset. So tell me a little bit, going back to People First and a little bit more about what you guys offer to employers, especially, as we're integrating all these new processes and procedures. I understand you've got some tools out there that you can help, provide to your customers, retention tools, employer tours, something about Thrive. Tell me a little bit more about your products.
Yeah, so we are a service-based company, but we do have many different products and tools that we use to help get clients up and running. And that just depends on the level of engagement we have. Sometimes we're fully integrated, and sometimes we're just providing more so resource and guidance and accountability externally. And that starts from our Cards for Culture game, which we have train other culture leaders on and put in the hands of other people. They don't have to hire us to do it. And the goal is because we want to get that tool out there. We want people to be culture change agents within their own organization. Sometimes that's the most successful place to start. And so we want to arm them with the tools to do that effectively. We also have our Thrive model, and the way that works is we talk about it in terms of roots and branches, because companies are growing and developing, their needs grow and develop and change as well. You don't want to try and put a really robust infrastructure on a small, nimble company. It just doesn't work. So we really try to help companies understand where they are and lay out kind of the roots or the fundamentals of the tree. And that's, your compliance. What's the health of the business look like? How are we treating our culture? Do we have kind of the basics in place? People operations, hiring structure, we have the basics in place. And it kind of guides them all the way up through what we call, visually the branches. And that's your leveling up, right? So once you have fundamentals, great. Don't stop there. Right? We need to be competitive. We need to be constantly growing and evolving. So what are the next things you can do to develop and grow your people, grow your business, and become that best in class or best place to work type of company? So that's something we give away for free. And that's truly like a heat map or checklist people can take and use, or we'll guide clients through that ourselves. But we also have something that we call a people success plan internally, which is our way of coming into a client and understanding what are their short-term goals and priorities, what are their long-term goals and priorities, and we're able to work methodically through culture plan and then the people operations and strategy step by step with them.
Okay. Perfect. So we're going to wrap up here, but I understand that people can sign up to get your newsletter. We'll make sure they have the information to sign up to get that. And then certainly want to see everyone March 13th for a talent strategy symposium. We'll make sure there's information about that and look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
You too, Nancy. Look forward to it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Knockelman, owner of Schneller Knockelman Plumbing, Heating, and Air. As we kick off 2024, I want to let you know about a major giveaway of a free system, a complete furnace and air conditioning system for your home. All you have to do is go online at skpha/2024 giveaway, and you can register, no purchase necessary, to win this complete system for your family. If you're not interested because your system is too young, please share this with your friends and neighbors so that they have an opportunity to win also. And if you're not in the market for a new furnace and air conditioning system, make sure you call us and schedule your furnace tune-up here for the winter. And just remember, call Schneller Knockelman, your family-owned company. Trust us, we're going to be there for you.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today and hearing from Ashleigh and Alexandra. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about different talent strategies that we have going on here in Northern Kentucky. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, CVG, Sea Crew Consulting, and Schneller Knockelman. Don't forget to look into NKYP's upcoming service learning project with Emergency Shelter of Northern Kentucky at nkychamber.com/service project. Finally, if you're a member who would like to be featured on the podcast, or if you're someone who is interested in joining the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, please reach out to Lynn Ablin. And if you're someone who is interested in sharing your workforce strategies and resources on NKY at Work, please reach out to Nancy Spivey. You can find their information on the screen in front of you if you are one of our viewers, and our listeners can look up that information at our staff directory at nkychamber.com. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to everyone next week.